This is our last Y Talk for 2025. And it's a great place to end at. We have been talking about agents quite a lot in different capacities. And in this case, we're taking a talk. Silver Okonkwo, who was going to do a talk for us last month, we are actually rescheduled to this month. And I thought it was honestly a great blessing that that happened. There are yeah, there's good reason for the reschedule, but I'm glad it happened because now we have a more well-rounded talk in the sense that we have Angela, who is kind of boots on the ground working with AI agents. Angela and I were actually considering doing an AI agents project together. So in lieu of that, we're doing this talk. So I'm glad we at least found a way to channel that. So I'm super excited. Angela Garabet and Silver Okonkwo will be joining today. Silver will kind of be representing more the governance part. Today's talk, AI for Good, Governance, Ethics, and the Age of Intelligent Agents. So we have her kind of representing the governance side of things, Angela representing the AI agents side of things, and we'll be having a conversation today about how ethics are playing a role in how AI is being built and how autonomous agents are, how that's being baked into the autonomous nature of agents. So I'm excited about this one. Let me just stop there and maybe have Silver introduce herself, tell us a little bit more about her background, and we'll do the same with Angela afterwards, and then we'll get into our questions. I just want to say before we start, anybody that's here live with us today, please feel free to ask questions in the chat. We're going to have a chat questions and answer like sort of section of this talk at the end. So we definitely want to hit on any, questions that come up for you as the talk goes on. And we'll do this kind of a fireside chat style, and then leave room for your questions at the end. So thank you so much. Excited about this. Yeah, Silver, let's start with you.
Um, Thank you so much, Irene, for having me. It is a pleasure to be here. So, hello everyone. My name is Silva Okonkwo, and I am an AI consultant. I'm currently instructing at Multiverse. So, I work across so many industries, teaching AI, embedding ethics into their very core. So, I work with organizations such as the NHS, local government councils in the UK, across the retail manufacturing. I mean, it's cut across all industries. And for me, it's all about how organizations use AI. If they're implementing it, are they doing this responsibly? So that is my job to help them ask these questions to help them be more productive and efficient in a very, very responsible manner. And I also have a background in software engineering. So before I went into AI, I was all about software development. That was my thing. I still do love software development, but now I'm more focused on AI, where I'm helping organizations to implement. So literally move beyond the hype to actually get practical impact to the organization. So if you're investing in these tools, helping them to get that return on investment, helping to train their staff as well. I could go on and on and on, but I mean, you're welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn and you can learn more about me. So that's all I'm going to say now. And I'm also a research collaborator at the AI Hub, which is based in the University of Oxford. Where I did present my research on AI and accessibility. And I recently came back from I traveled back to Nigeria for a UN event, which is going to really key into what we're going to talk about today because it's all about AI governance. We're talking about ethical AI frameworks, contextualizing AI for different regions. So, like I said, you're more than welcome to connect with me to learn more about me. So that would be it. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Thank you, Silver. And actually, if both of you want to put just your own LinkedIn link in the chat, feel free to obviously connect with both these ladies, in general. But yeah, feel free to do that too. Cool. I'll have maybe Angela, you go next and introduce yourself.
Hi there, my name is Angela, and I'm also very happy to connect. I think this is an amazing community, and this is kind of what we need, is everyone kind of coming together in these spaces and having conversations. Um, I've been involved more recently in some projects that spun out of MIT, the NANDA project, which is the Internet of AI Agents, and I've been involved in that community. And I enjoy bringing together people to have these types of conversations, especially around agentic infrastructure and governance. My background originally was in some of the human factors area and looking at using data and machine learning and predictive modeling for, safety in more of a physical context, also within organizations as well as vehicle telematics. And as a result of that, I got myself more into the AI machine learning space of how to do that kind of predictive modeling around that. But I think what's interesting is that I think safety in the real world, our normal concepts of safety and safety in the software world, I don't think there's a lot of distinction. So I like to bring a lot of those learnings from different domains into my work.
Amazing. Thank you both. And I think that's a good place to start with this conversation about ethics and when you see that a team is building AI or whether it's agents or broader systems, if they're building without thinking about consequences, when you see that, because you're both kind of involved with these pretty intricate, involved projects, what's the first thing you want to tell organizations that you work with or teams that you work with when you start to see that they are building without ethics in mind or downstream consequences in mind? Yeah, what's the first thing that comes to mind as advice or guidance for these organizations?
I mean, I would ask some questions. So I would start with who are the people that would benefit from this system? And then if this system were to break, who pays? There was a very funny scenario that played out earlier in the year. I think it was over there in the US. It was with a self-driving car and another robot. So you saw when that accident happened, and it was like, oh my God, so who is responsible for this? Because these are two autonomous systems. So who pays? And the third question would be, are those the same people? Like, who benefits from this if it works, and who pays if it breaks? Does it affect the same people? So if the people who are building a tool is not affected by the tool itself, then I think we have a problem, because you're more likely going to fix a problem that you know impacts you. So if you're not going to feel the consequences of getting this wrong, why should you even care making it right in the first place? So if your AI system or AI team is all based in the US and you're building something for maybe a country like Nigeria, where I come from, you're definitely missing critical context. And that's what I was speaking about at that event where I traveled to. You cannot govern what you don't understand. So context is very, very important.
Yeah, I'd like to also add to that. I feel that trust is a product differentiator. So you're doing a disservice to whatever product or service that you're building if you're not taking this into account. I also think that it's important to companies look within. Chances are, if they're rushing ahead, then that says to me that there's some sort of organizational culture concerns, because you want a team and a culture where people are able to speak up freely and have psychological safety if they see something wrong, that it's going to also be addressed. So I think it's also a work within the organization to build better products. And if I see a team rushing ahead, I ask, oh, does this team, is it inclusive? Are they having the right stakeholders involved? Do people feel safe and comfortable to bring up things in their work that they see? And are they also taken seriously?
And I think so often these conflicts of like per people versus technology, right? It seems to be that the conflict most of the time happens because of financial constraints or rushing to come to market, as you're saying, or um, I don't know, I guess a lack of like mandated, efforts. So like this work within has to come from the inside in terms of um the teams building it or the leadership of that organization should be one where they're prizing this. They are already a friend to ethics in this space, right? But there is that natural conflict. So, I guess what's the hardest lesson you've learned about this people versus technology conflict? Do you find that it is mostly motivated by the finances, or do you feel like there are other aspects at play?
That is a little, I don't know. I would say that sometimes systems don't fail because it wasn't built properly, but I'd say they always fail to ask the right question, which is it has to do with who is this being built for and who can this hurt. For me, my personal mantra is if your system is not going to improve our standards of living or make us more productive or efficient, then it should leave us unchanged. So what I'm going to say is if you are building a tool, say for people with mobility issues, I think you need to bring those stakeholders into the room with you. Because for me, the hardest lesson in all this, I think technology is easy. People are hard. It's like when we use, when you see some harm being perpetuated somewhere, it's not the technology itself, it is the people who use that technology to cause harm. So I have worked with a healthcare pre-screening tool. So technically everything was great, but when we mapped the actual like customer patient journey, we realized that it would exclude people with low bandwidth, reliable internet, or any form of digital literacy. So the algorithm was fair, but the deployment would have been devastating because the majority of the people you're building this for, which is it's called Project Sunshine, is based in India, would be in the rural side of India, would literally exclude the people who you're building the very tool from. So for me, I would say AI does not necessarily fail when you're building it. It's when it gets in the real world, that's where you have the real test. So with real people who don't fit your assumptions, which brings me back to what I said about context. So it's very important. So I don't think no, technology is quite easy. It's the people that's hard.
Yeah, but that hardness, like, do you feel like it's motivated by any one thing in particular? Is it ignorance? Is it willful ignorance? Is it a lack of desire to invest in the proper way?
I think it's just I don't know. I think mostly driven by fear of missing out. So
Hmm.
many people are building tools now because I mean, my competitors, companies that are smaller than me seems to be doing bigger things. We have to scale, we have to get there. So we ignore the very important features that we need in our products because we want to get ahead, which is why some people really don't like hearing the word AI governance because they feel like it's going to stifle innovation, is going to slow them down. But I don't think for me, it's all about finding the right balance. So I don't think it's really ignorance. I think we know what the downsides are, but we're going to fail forward. I think that's what they're thinking, which is great. If you're having a tool which is as powerful as this, then I think you need to slow down and be sure that that speed is not going to gate people in its wake. So for me, it's all about fear of missing out, yeah, and profits.
Yeah. And maybe changing that conversation to be like, well, maybe with governance, you can build more confidently, right? Like with proper governance, with proper, you know, personas in the center of what you're building and why you're building it, right? Like without that, then there can be that fear, that risk of like, oh, whatever downstream effects that we don't know about yet, or we don't know who it's not going to serve yet, right? It's too expensive to build with that kind of uncertainty. So maybe framing it as like governance being a tool for you to build without having so much fear around it.
I don't think you can build a tool for or a platform for a target market when you don't know who your audience is. You do know who you're building that tool for. And I can confidently say that these organizations know this because it's more like ethics is performative. So they'll now try to set up an ethical committee after the product is now being built. So for me, I'll just say it's ethical washing because you're not following that. I'll give you a small example of something that happened last week. It was in Pakistan, their major newspaper. I don't know if you saw that, Dawn. So they have this AI policy in their own case that they're not going to use any AI tools to enhance any of their editorial processes or anything. But one of the journalists did use, in fact, ChatGPT, and then he copied the whole output with the telltale signs of, do you want me to make this punchier or something like that? And, it went on the front cover. That really went viral, because then you're not practicing what you preach. And what does that do? Trust is broken. So if I'm to look at that paper tomorrow, I mean, I'm going to feel like you have AI generated news and you have policies that you clearly don't follow. So for me, if you're having to have an ethical committee or ethics review after your system is built, then I'm saying you know what you're doing. So because this needs to be done outside, or you bring in people outside the development team, no. Ethics should be embedded into the design phase because that's when you get to ask those hard questions. And well, that's the point where people feel like we're slowing down. So I don't think it is ignorance. No, far from it, because I have worked with so many organizations and I would say that it's just the fear of slowing down and missing out that's causing this. Yeah.
And I feel like that train's moving so fast, particularly in the AI agent space, because now it's like that is the next thing, right? But then with AI agents, you're talking about multiple AI systems now with decision-making capabilities to some degree now working together and so can we speak about that side of it too a little bit in this conversation?
I definitely feel that like ethics should be viewed as like a core component of your product or service because you want a product that people feel comfortable with and that's trustworthy. And so it's kind of essential component. And so sometimes the indicator of that trust might be kind of lagging or it's not, doesn't seem tangible to your product marketing. But in essence, it is because we actually have a lot of people in society out there right now who will not touch AI products. And so everyone's in a different stage of the adoption curve. So it's also proving that value to them and making them feel comfortable with the product. And if you have a significant incident, which we've all read the news and stuff, and then people are like, oh, I don't know anymore about using this. I don't know, right? And so you don't kind of don't want to lose those people. And I think AI agents. I know we're going to talk about this like probably a little bit more. There's definitely a lot of promise, but I think the trust and there's so many issues that need to be worked out in terms of identity, trust for agents, so many different factors that it's important as a community that we kind of come together and have these discussions.
So for me, I would say that when it has to do with agents, traditional AI governance assumes human oversight and decision points. And now we're talking about agents, so we're automating end-to-end processes. And for me, I would say we need human oversight. I mean, one of my learners where I work, I remember somebody mentioned to me that they automated a process. I'm trying to couch this in a way where I don't reveal certain information. But it's more like there was a lot of errors, inaccuracies in the report at the end point, and it was supposed to go straight to their CEO. And he was like, he was grateful that he has it at the front of his mind to not trust blindly, to review the outputs, to be able to evaluate the output of these systems before sending it out. So I would say human oversight cannot be overstated. We need a human in the loop if you're talking about agents, because we're seeing algorithmic decision making being increasingly used almost everywhere in the justice system. We use it to decide who gets what sentences. We use it to decide who gets, for example, loans, if you're talking about algorithmic decision making. So if you're looking at using agents to do this, well, we can be exacerbating bias at scale if we don't have a human in the loop. So there is a very big problem there. So for me, when it comes to agents, I would always say we need a human in the loop. We need that human oversight. So at least let's have somebody have another look before you send this out, especially if it's something that's very sensitive. It has to do with health. It has to do with human lives. It has to do with finances. So if an AI agent makes a bad decision, again, who is responsible? Is it the organization that is implementing this? Is it the developers? So is it the user who in fact did set the parameters? We need to be able to hold somebody accountable. We can't just leave it running to say, well, we're going to figure that out. It is great that we're building these tools. It is great that it's saving us time. And would I say a lot of money? Great. But we also need to ensure that we have a human in the loop human oversight is very, very important.
And we talked about this a little bit, in terms of like baking governance into the design process and things like that. Just going down that, more practical side of things. If we're seeing ethics treated more as a checkbox or as a, vanity thing, after the fact or in a way that feels performative, what does actually doing it right look like? If any ideas come to mind from either of you, um, that would be nice.
I'm sorry, can you ask that again?
Uh, so we talk about ethics and governance being treated as an afterthought, and we did say, one suggestion would be baking governance into the design process. I'm curious if there are other solutions or recommendations of like what actually doing it right looks like from your perspectives.
I mean, you have said the most important bit. So you're trying to push that important bit sideways, which is the most
Mhm.
important bit. Ethics has to be embedded in the design phase. We are not supposed to do this after, which is what so many organizations, so many companies are doing now. So let's get these stakeholders together. Let's co-create with the stakeholders. So it's not just like I'll speak to some of my learners and I say ethics is not just about saying, oh, that's an ethics officer, that's an AI ethics consultant. It's no longer a specialist role. It is now our collective responsibility. So long as you're using this tool, you also have a duty to use it responsibly. And if you spot something wrong, if you're seeing a pattern in whatever the output you're getting from this tool, you should flag it. And this company should have a way for users to flag these issues back to them, because you can't just release a product out there and then expect people to use it. Well, we're going to deal with the problem as it arises, but there is no feedback loop. You need that feedback loop to be able to reiterate and also refine your product or your process or your platform. So for me, it's all about embedding it directly when you're designing your product.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. It's kind of human-centered design, like really getting in touch with why are you using AI? What are you trying to solve? And does AI, is it even needed in this particular context? And what is the outcome and what is the end users you're trying to solve for? And are they actually finding value from it and not making assumptions about their workflow?
Yeah, and that's the thing. If making governance part of the design process itself is the thing to focus on, how do we get there? Like what are the practical steps to get there? Is it um because we talk about stakeholders, right? But these companies could very well argue, but we have involved the stakeholders and they are, part of the product, meetings beforehand and so I guess, when it comes to like sort of practical, advice for these businesses or for people out there that are considering building or considering working with agents, yeah, like what are some of those practical steps we can offer them?
Look at your data. History is very important to the present. And a very good example would be the old Amazon recruitment AI tool that they developed a long time ago, which was scrapped because it would favor male candidates for tech roles over female candidates. And I don't think that Amazon had set out to do that. And even till today, we're still advocating for more women in tech. So I can imagine back then we had more men in these roles. So the data would reflect that we had more males. So the system would automatically think that men were more qualified. So I would say the first one is acknowledge that all data reflects historical bias. So you have to check that bit. The training data does, in fact, capture the world as it is or as it was, not as it should be. So if you train on historical hiring data like Amazon did, you're training on historical discrimination. But like I said, in their case, I would say I don't think they set out to do that. It was just what it was at the time. And also diversify who builds and tests. When we're talking about diversity, I mean, somebody could just say in London, you would pick a Black person like myself, Nigerian, you'd pick Irene. Okay, no, you're not in London. So you'll pick an Irene who lives in London and is from the UK. And then you pick Tej, who is Indian but lives in London. Well, yes, to some extent, that is a diversified group, but is it really diversified? I can't really speak to the context of Nigeria right now because I don't live there. It is the people who live there at this point in time that can really tell you the sort of things that they are facing. So if we're looking at diversified data sets, for example, you need to get these details, this data from the actual stakeholders who are in the environment. And then when it has to do with building and testing, if every single one building your AI looks the same, there is a problem. If all of them are Asians and then this tool is going to come into Africa, there is a problem. So if all of us think the same, all of us attended MIT, there is a problem as well. So we need people with diverse lived experiences and people who don't see the world the same way, because otherwise you risk missing those blind spots. You need diverse teams. And also testing is important. Test on the population that is most likely to be harmed. So don't just get your average users. I mean, it's easier. Just, get some few people, test on edge cases, and then that is it. Get those marginalized groups, people who have historically been excluded, especially if your tool has to do, you need them, they're going to be part of your users, because that's where AI is going to fail first. Because for you, that's not very important. I mean, you're just going to use it and you don't really care. So, and also build feedback loops for people to report them. This is very, very important, and actually respond to that feedback. So it shouldn't just be another, banner. Yeah, we have this feedback loop. Actually take that feedback and do something with it. Respond to it. If users report bias, I would say investigate immediately and be willing to pull the system offline if needed. Again, somebody would say, well, we're not moving forward. And also, I would say you cannot fix systemic inequity with better algorithms. You cannot fix that with better algorithms. AI will always reflect the data that it was trained on. And if that world was unjust, if it was unfair, your AI system is definitely going to be that too.
Thank you, Silver. Anything to add on your part, Angela?
Yeah, no, I just kind of love that because it does get to the point that AI cannot be a magic fix for broken systems. If you have a broken system, it's important to look internally at like where are my processes going wrong? What is my people, organizational, all these other factors? You can't just layer AI on top of it and expect all of a sudden it to kind of fix these things. And so I also appreciate that it's at each stage of the life cycle of development, all the way from data to deployment. That's where kind of governance lies.
Yeah. One Project Compass was one where they were using algorithms to determine sentences, and it was actually found to be mitigating predictable bias and errors in the judge's reasoning. So basically, uh, projecting more bias from the training data basically into our justice system. So I'll link that in the chat if people are curious. But yeah, thank you. Thank you. I know this is a tough thing, right? And it's tough in general because we have things like the EU AI Act, and there are designations now and legislation coming around to try to get to the heart of this, but really don't have, any sort of like widespread like regulatory framework that is mandated, in a way that feels, encompassing for the degree in which AI is in our lives, right? So that's the hard part in all this, and I'm sure the frustrating part, on your end as solvers of these problems, right? Because you probably have to say the same thing over and over again, I would imagine.
I also feel like agents, there's something very new and unique that, we haven't explored. It's the dynamic nature of agents. Like you can build an agent, but then it can learn and grow and interact in ways. And how do you guarantee the same behavior, and how do you audit that? How do you verify that? And I think in the regulatory space, it's not catching up because we're even the tech in the tech industry itself, like we haven't answered a lot of those questions yet. And so I'm actually involved in a virtual conference that's going to be on December 4th or December 10th, and it's going to be open to all. And it's going to be talking about AI standards and protocols and bringing together, um, standards associations, protocol associations, builders, entrepreneurs, so we can have these conversations of what does it mean, for example, for an agent to have an identity and how to trust it and how to, if it does work for you, how do you guarantee that work is good? How do you get a refund? Maybe it goes on to some other network and changes its behavior. These are very emergent, topics that even the tech people, that's why right now we need everyone involved in these conversations to help develop, oh, these are what we kind of need going forward, and this is what we need to look at. So I'll just put that in the link, the
Please
Luma
do.
invite.
Okay, Luma, Luma is organizing it, right?
Oh, no, no. It's the Advanced AI Society, and I'm involved because I'm part of IEEE Blockchain, and we're a knowledge partner for the event. And so we're bringing together people from IEEE, from Linux Foundation, from, MCP, 8A. I think right now there's about 32. When I did the research, there's about 32 different protocols and standards. And so if we all build something new and we reinvent the wheel and we're not talking and communicating, is this system that we build, is it going to work for people? Is it going to have gaps? So I think these conversations are so important for the community to have, just to compare notes and see where the gaps kind of lie and make sure that there's interoperability.
Yeah, and thank you, by the way, for referencing that event. I'm excited about that. I'll definitely be joining, and it's actually very easy to register, guys. So please feel free to do that. But also, I mean that's got to be the hard part right now is um, a set of standards or requirements really hasn't been discovered yet to the full capacity. Like, I know we've had legislations and things are moving, depending on who's in power and, the geopolitics of it all too. But then, like, how it's hard to tell how companies should act when the rules are still being written, when these even how this works is, is it one person? Is it 10? Is it one entity? And to Silver's point, who's responsible for that entity? Because then do companies have the ability to be like, well, we gave it some autonomy, but not full autonomy, so actually we're not fully responsible either. I'm sure that argument will be made. So that's the thing. I guess for you, what do you feel like are the real regulatory frameworks right now that are preventing real harm? Or is it just like you know, looks good on paper safety net that I don't know. How do you feel about what's actually out there right now?
I think just like you said, it's more like looking good on paper. And I think the US president kind of like pulled all the stops, if there was any. But what I would say is companies, I like that your question, the way you framed it. I think companies should not rely on regulation alone, which is why we talk about ethics, because if you're talking about ethics, there is no law to say this is an ethical law. This is just something you're supposed to do. It has to be part of your process. It's more like if it was a person, I'll say it's who you are. So ethics is literally how high you go. Regulation should definitely not be the ceiling for you. So it should literally be your starting point. And if we really don't have any tangible regulation to enforce this, then I would say organizations should actually they should self-govern. Self-govern. We cannot rely on regulation alone because AI, the way AI is moving, honestly, I'm not sure anyone can keep up. You can sign up to so many newsletters, you can sign up to so many industry papers and publications you're trying to, before you finish reading one, 50 more has dropped. So the way this is moving is faster than regulators can keep up. So by the time any rule is even written, the technology has evolved. And then, so I would just say regulation literally codifies what's being learned. If we look at GDPR, it exists because what happened? Data was misused. So we're having this EU AI Act because of maybe facial recognition issues was misused. We cannot also plan for all possible problems or strains of this misuse. This is why we have the regulations. But like I said, if it's moving real quick that regulators themselves can't keep up. So what we can do is industry has to set standards. We need standards. So companies have to self-regulate and then industries set standards. Have your engineers, have your ethics committee, have people speak up. We have to do this one way or another until we get to that, I would say, point of equilibrium where we're no longer really like raising, oh, this company is going to release this version. So I'm sure we're going to get to that point. I know that's what some people are saying, the bubble is going to bust. So I'm sure we're going
We're
to get to that
waiting.
point. I'm sure we're going to get to that point, but for now, it's almost like we're going to have new and dynamic cases every day. So it's more like on a case by case. We have this EU AI Act. Other frameworks, other regulations are also up and coming, but I would say industry should actually set standards. We should have like the base, the benchmark, and then any other thing can now be built on top of that, and then organizations should self-govern because other than that, there is no real enforcer. There is nothing else that's going to happen. And so we can actually have more harm than good if we don't even try to do this on our own because it's moving real fast. It is way too fast for even my liking. I didn't say that.
And well, right, it's overwhelming. But also, I think I like the framing of ethics being the focus because um, that feels to me like a race to the top as opposed to regulations and whatever's mandated, which is a rush to the bottom of like the MVP. What is the least I can give to this market, to these people? What is the least amount of testing? What is the least amount of development? What is the least amount of research that I feel comfortable with releasing something? So that to me is a race to the bottom. I understand why tech does this, but at the same time, it is how we've built a foundation of building tech. So it follows that, doing the right thing based on the honor system would trickle to the end of the list of priorities. And that's the behavior that, we don't like to see, but it's also the behavior that's perpetuated because you have a prime example like OpenAI, right? This is a product where people are sharing their deepest, darkest fears and insecurities and hopes and fears with that can be subpoenaed. It can be, it's not even bound to HIPAA regulations, right? You're talking about, am I fit, you're writing to ChatGPT about your health history, about your real experiences, and there's not even consensus on how much safety OpenAI is subject to. Even that conversation hasn't really been had yet. We're still trying to figure it out, really. So it's hard because these companies that are building the standard, I wouldn't say like weren't they recently saying like, oh, we're gonna make Chat GPT like what was it? I don't know if it's like sex robot friendly. I don't know what the right terminology is, but you're going to be able to have a romantic interpersonal relationship with them. And that's something that Sam Altman recently talked about how great that's going to be for people. So, like, to me, that feels like now you're releasing an even scarier, weirder version of this to a new subset of people, right? So, where's the ethics in that?
I mean, um, it still boils down to what I've been saying. What's appropriate in one situation is not in another. The examples you've given are great. And let's not forget that about at least two people have lost their lives due to systems encouraging them to
Yeah,
do so.
psychosis.
So what happened? Who was held accountable? How do we prevent this from happening? Because especially teens will always be teens. They'll do things, especially when you say don't do them. So they'll really want to do them. And these systems don't understand context except maybe you frame it. So if you're coming in and then you're chatting about your mental health, and I mean, it's just going to just keep predicting the next damn word to you. And it doesn't really understand, oh, I'm speaking with. And now that's where the safeguards should come in. What are the age range that should use this kind of tools? And the example you gave of the word you said and all that, if that happens, then you're going to have young people really, really abuse that feature, which for me, I don't even want in a tool like that. Because I mean, we have those adults kind of things, which is it specializes in that. We don't have to integrate it into tools that are being used by 12-year-olds, 13, 14, and also 15-year-olds. So where are the safeguards around that? What happens? Who is being held responsible for any of these things that is happening? Absolutely no one. So for me, I'd say, again, we need to implement human in the loop. Some people come up with some crazy ideas, and you will always find crazy people who are going to support that idea one way or another. And then we create tools after tools. I read a LinkedIn post by Clara Lynn Hawking, where she said, she was spending the whole day seeing how easy it was to now create pornographic material. It was for educational context. So seeing how easy it is to now create this. How about teenagers? This is what they are now doing. These tools are too accessible. And these are meant to be, for example, for it's adult content. But how do you allow younger people to have access to that? Well, that in fact, indirectly is your target market. Can't you see that? But they know that there is no repercussion for using these tools, however they decide to do that. So for me, ethics requires judgment. At this point, we can only advocate. There is nothing really to hold anybody accountable by or for. We can just advocate. So for me, I'll just say, don't relent in advocating for ethical AI, because the more people you have on your side, the more maybe something is going to get done a lot more sooner than later, because somebody has to be able to explain why a decision was made. Why was a chatbot encouraging somebody to kill themselves? When we were doing the testing, what safeguards did we put around that? Did we have like maybe some trigger, like if somebody was talking about being suicidal, does a human take over? What happens in that instance? What's the security? What's the safety around that? So we really need to look at that holistically to be able to curb this that is really spreading like wildfire right now?
I think it's also like an educational piece that people at the board and institutional investors who invest in particular companies, there's an educational piece there that it can do harm to reputation, and it's from, like any other, social governance factor, for impact investing, or, like that AI ethics and governance should be kind of a part of how you look at investing in these companies. I will say, I think with agents, there is an opportunity, and that's why I'm kind of passionate about standards and protocols and bringing people together, because I feel there's an opportunity and there's a lot of discussion out there on sovereignty. A lot of countries like Switzerland just announced that they're going to make their own LLM.
Mhm.
Allen AI actually recently came out with an LLM that actually they tell everyone where their training data, came from.
Love
And I
that.
think a lot of countries are interested in ownership and control. And, as individuals with agents, maybe my agent, instead of me having to go to 100 different websites to set privacy settings that are like obscure and you can't find them and whatever, what if my agent just told me what my parameters of what I want to share or what I didn't want to share? And so I think there are builders, kind of talking about these things. I don't think they're dominant players in the industry right now, but I think we could have a world where, regardless if you're using a frontier LLM, you can still have some sort of control, personal control and sovereignty.
And I think that speaks to the earlier comment too about this these standards or these ethical requirements, we can call it, coming from the consumer end or the end user side or that reputational risk side. That feels like the best linchpin there is right now because there is opposition to what OpenAI is doing. At first it was like, yay, open source software. Wow, what a treasure. And now, because of these conversations about how it's going to get funding and how it's going to make money and whatever, right? And now added complexity of agents, I feel like the conversation is now becoming more serious because I mean, this is like the one of the quickest adoption tools that there ever was, right? 100 million in what, like 90 days or something. So it's like, yeah, because of how pervasive and accessible these tools are becoming, it's almost forcing it from the end user side because now a bunch of people are going into clinics, because they're being validated for things that probably they shouldn't be, right? So,
I think
um,
also from the enterprise side. So,
mm,
people or, institutions will pay more money to these large companies, for their data to be, kind of private and on premise. So there is a lot, it's both, it's both the enterprise side and individuals that, they also want to protect their proprietary information, from being kind of leaked out, and making sure that the people who have access to the information are the right people who need that access to the information. So I think it's both.
mhm. Yeah. And then in terms of you know, I guess how do we avoid I mean, I like these like conversations about AGI and like the Skynet of the future, right? I I find them like distracting from the real concerns that we have today with the tools we have today, right? But it is a question that I think is still relevant because um as there's more complexity based on what we know now, imagine where we'll be in 5 years, right? What are the conversations we'll be having at that point? So how do we protect ourselves, I guess?
Well, I would say, well, that's the word I've been trying not to use all evening. Slow down.
Okay.
So that would be slow down in high stakes domain because not everything needs to move at startup speed. If we're looking at healthcare, if we're looking at criminal justice, if we're looking at finance, we can take some time to get those right. And then there should also be like some impact assessment before you deploy. Because if your AI system affects certain number of people, for example, you should have to assess the potential harms before you launch. So, and also the whole Skynet situation, I don't know what to make of that because right now I think we're building systems that the consequences are, I don't know, we're already creating systems whose consequences we don't fully understand. And that is not a very good thing. So I would say maybe we should build systems like hiring AI that does not deny care to certain populations, right? AI that looks like at entire demographics, not just certain ones and prioritize those ones for example. So I would say we should slow down. Not everything really needs to. And I get it. I mean, a company exists to make money, so you don't want to miss out your opportunities and all that. We have to try to find that balance where we're building in ethics while still moving fast, just not that fast. So I think that's something that we can do. Just slow down and try to get it right instead of trying to firefight later on. That's if anyone cares to do that, anyways.
Do you both have, any examples of products, organizations, whatever, teams, that do balance that speed and impact responsibly? Like, do you feel like who would you say does?
For me, I'm going to say everyone and no one. I'm not going to name any organization because, like I said, it's more like ethical washing out there. You see organizations say, oh, we're doing this. And then when you go in there, if it's an organization where maybe not the ones I've worked with, maybe some of the ones that I have seen, maybe not. But then you go in there and see that you're not practicing what they preach. So you can look at it from your eyes, you're externally looking at that, and then you imagine, well, they're doing the right things, they're doing all the right things, but they're just telling you that they're doing all the right things. They're not doing all the right things. So for me, I would no. I think everyone and no one is doing it. That's what I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really tough. I think there's a lot of people doing good work, like talking about standards, protocols, thinking about these topics. I think also some of the work in the decentralized space is interesting, and people working, kind of with that and trying to give transparency to people about where their data is going. I think there's a lot of interesting work out there. I think what we kind of mentioned before is that it's really unfortunate that the harms are already out there. We don't have to think about future harms that, we have to just kind of right now, I think, deal with these topics that have already been unleashed, like, the chatbot addictions and all these other things. And what can we learn as like a current lesson kind of moving forward? Because the harms are already out there.
Yeah. And at this point, I think I also don't want it to be doom and gloom, because I think every emergent technology goes through this. This just happens to be ours. You know, uh, I'm sure it was always hard. I'm sure before there were railroad standards, they were crashing into each other all the time. I don't know, you know. Um, and that, I mean, I guess that being aware of the scale of that and the potential impact of that at this point, because at this point it's more ideological, it's mental, it's, even impacting our critical thinking skills, right? If you become too reliant on these tools, right? I had to say no to two AI note takers that were trying to come on here. And the reason why I said no is because I wants to record this, which I don't know, maybe that's not a big deal, but like it just like I didn't like it, and we're still like feeling our way around like how I want to interact with an agent. Like I don't even know yet if I want to, as a human. Never mind my agent interacting with someone else's agent. Like what was the example? Bumble, the CEO of Bumble was talking about that. She was saying that, potentially a route we can take with dating apps is there would be an agent that's used to me and my tone and how I talk and what I like to talk about and whatever. And it would flirt, I guess, with someone's agent on Bumble. And then if our agents thought that we vibed, we would meet, I guess. And then that becomes tricky, right? Because we're talking about how this is impacting organizations, cross impact of organizations and products out there, but now it's going to be people, like various entities of AI agents and me, the consciousness that is Irene, right? I don't know. It's gray. It's we are in this murky water.
Yeah, at the same time, I feel there's like an opportunity. Like, most of the internet back in the days, you couldn't send payments on the internet. So that's why a lot of the internet developed to be this attention economy where we have a lot of advertising and this and that. And so maybe going forward, we ask, our chatbot or our agent to just we can put more intentionality into what we want and then have the agent go out and make these payments or do whatever to then bring us, kind of more of what we need versus, relying a lot on these other mechanisms. And, hopefully, like, I'm excited about certain trends, like, that codings become a lot more accessible. And I feel like, oh, this is so exciting because people maybe in their regular jobs who are non-technical can use these tools to kind of empower themselves to make their lives more productive. um those are some of the things that I'm excited about is like that, I think the internet is going to change again. And I think with agents, we're at a kind of a pivotal point. And so that's why these conversations are amazing to bring together people to think about how do we as want to make the internet to keep it free for everyone to participate in, that we don't have such platform lock that we've had historically.
Well, for me, I would say that these tools, they're making our lives easier. But like you said, I mean, it's not all doom and gloom. I was just about to start with doom, but I changed my mind. So, we can see that these tools, these platforms are making us more efficient. Look at you, you're focusing on what we're saying. You're not worried about, oh, like the note-taking thingy. So you have like a summary. If anybody wanted that, they can actually extract the key points that we, conversed about here today. So we can see so many good use cases. We're not having robots do explorations in places where ordinarily humans wouldn't go there. So these are great use cases. And for professionals, I know the big one is fear of losing their jobs, which unfortunately, this is something that is happening. It's not something that we have to sugarcoat. But like I tell the professionals that I deal with every new technology comes opportunity. So with AI, now look at me, I'm an AI consultant. Maybe I wouldn't have been an AI consultant before now. So we're having new jobs, we're having new roles as well. You're having AI engineers, AI instructors. There's so many things. And as for you, you're coming here to learn how to become more productive. You're coming here to learn how to be more efficient, save you time on this repetitive task or research or analysis. you don't need to be a data analyst. Well, not 100%, but now you can use some of these tools to write some functions that you probably wouldn't have known how to do. There's so many good sides of this technology, and I'm really hoping that we as a people will just focus on using this big, great tool to do something really useful and impactful for all humanity. You know, earlier when you were asking about the whole ethics question, and Angela said it's tough, really, but there are so many people who are doing good out there. And for me, I would just say we want investors rewarding responsible AI, not just fast AI, because that's another thing. So many people are building just so, they can get the funds to scale. Again, that's the fear of missing out. Investors want to invest in products that they think, oh, it's going to be trendy. People are going to love this. And this is where it's like a vicious cycle. So it's hard to really come up with something to say, oh, this is going to be really useful and impactful. It's going to do all the good. Well, if it's not exploitative in some way, some people are not going to look at you because they need that side of the business. And also users demanding accountability and transparency. So in all this, I mean, there is a balance. There is nothing, there is no technology, there's no tool that does not have its positive and negative sides. So for this AI, I'm seeing that the reward is definitely greater than the risk if we actually do the right things, if we actually embed ethics, if we actually have this regulations, we have these frameworks that we go by. I think we're going to do just fine. I don't think that AI is going to end us. I really don't think it's gonna end us. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna say. It's not.
Yeah, and I like that because I do hear a lot of anti-AI sentiment, and I think a lot of that is coming from a good place. I really respect like that fear that is coming from, and that's part of culture building to me. We have to have examples of what can go wrong, and not even what can go wrong, but like an acknowledgement of what is going wrong. Like we have to be honest about that. We're not going to fix that problem without being honest about that first, right? But then I also think it's equally important to have that dreamer side of it too, where we insist on the standard, because we don't want a bunch of people who are going into psychosis and for a company to say, well, we don't have anything wrong with that, or for, companies to be part of, the polarization of ideology in general on the internet for clicks. And then to say, we played no part in that, right? Like we are building this culture of what we demand from these builders of technology, and in many cases who are also lobbyists in favor of the technology, right? So we have to acknowledge these things. These are real players that impact where we are in this conversation. So, and I have to thank both of you so much, honestly, because I'm one person, and I see how overwhelming it feels for me. And I'm not an AI consultant. I don't work as an AI consultant. And I still feel this pressure, to be so aware of where we are. And Angela and I had a conversation about that pressure too on the AI agent side of feeling like we can't learn fast enough. And it's like, well, that's on purpose. It's all happening so fast that no one person should be expected to keep up with it. And so talks like this are very validating for me because it takes the pressure off. It's like, oh, Silver feels overwhelmed, Angela feels overwhelmed, so of course I do. I'm just a baby in this, so yeah, it feels good to have that relief in a way, and I hope that's relieving for anybody that's been watching. Thank you guys so much for coming.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think the key is everyone needs to be in this space.
Yeah.
And to also keep in mind, like there's so many people who are not on using what AI to begin with and are very hesitant. And how as a society can we blend these different perspectives? Because I think that is going to be important so we don't end up with a digital divide.
Hmm. Yeah.
Make it work for everyone. Let's
Mhm.
make these tools work for everyone to actually solve real problems in the world. Like these can be used for real problems. People are studying real problems. It's amazing.
And that probably is the way to build trust again, because yeah, the trust has been broken. I mean, I use ChatGPT, and it's not like fully broken, but
Mm.
I am, guardrails.
Well, for me,
But
yeah, go on, Irene.
I said not too much. I don't want to get psychosis.
Yeah, so what I just want to leave us with today is just that when we hear governance, especially within AI, it's not about saying no, stamping the gavel. No, no, no. It's not about that. It's about building systems that deserve a yes, system that we can trust at least to some very good level. And just like you said, Irene, it cannot be the job of one person or one team. It has to be embedded into how we build, how we lead, and how we also hold each other accountable. We don't need perfect AI. We need AI that's built in a way that acknowledges what we don't know, planning for what could go wrong. I mean, we cannot plan for every single scenario, but at least planning for what could possibly go wrong. And also prioritizing people over efficiency, because that's how we get to build AI for good. That's how we get to build AI that ensures the systems we create don't just mirror our values, but help us to live up to them. So thank you very much, Irene, for having me today. It's been really great. And I also love learning from you, Angela. It's been I mean, it's like iron sharpening iron. So thank you so much, Irene and
Yep,
Angela,
thank
and
you.
to every single person who has attended the session today. Thank you so much for your brilliant questions as well. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely. We didn't get to some of those questions, but it's fine. I think the discussion was amazing. We were on a good roll there. So I will say to anybody that's still here, if you do want to maybe comment it in the because that's the nice thing about the thread of this. It'll be like a live recording that people can obviously go back to. So any questions you guys want to put in there, we can always chat about it and keep the conversation going on the thread itself. Thank you, everyone. This was such a good session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.